Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today, we will be discussing Book 1, Chapter 3 of Deadhouse Gates, a novel in the Malazan Books of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books, and we'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. But knowing me and my big mouth, I'm sure to spoil something for someone, so in advance, I'm sorry. Not sorry like Alec Baldwin after calling his daughter a pig on the answer machine, kind of sorry, but a sincere I'm sorry.
I had not heard about that.
Is that too strong? Is that too strong? I'm sorry.
We're all human. We all make mistakes. Let's leave it at that.
Yes.
Treat each other nicely.
Yes.
A quick warning. Today's episode contains descriptions of possible future violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Is it training for upcoming violence? Concussions.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Concussions.
Quick warning. Today's episode contains descriptions of concussive violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Our show is listener supported, and if you'd like to support us, we would really appreciate that. And you can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon.
Also, we would really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. We have two additions prior to the episode today. A listener reached out to us with an excellent suggestion. We've been going through the geography of the universe quite extensively as we've covered the Malazan books. This listener recommended an app called Malazan Maps. I downloaded it, and it's an excellent collection of the maps from the books. They are organized intuitively, though I would warn that it could be a little spoilery for new readers. Spoilery? Okay. It is decided.
Make it so.
Can we get me every time? It could be a little spoilery for new readers, given you will see there are maps for the areas that you may not have read about yet.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to add spoilery to the Horse Frogopedia.
I'm slacking.
It could be me slacking. I'll always blame the bass player. I'm sorry. I was reading a Nick Mason. Nick Mason was the drummer for Pink Floyd, and it was a brilliant post. I actually reposted it today. It said, "Whenever you the first lesson as a drummer is whenever you screw up, look real angrily at the bass player and like you're blaming him for screwing up." You know, it's like my dad got it. Quite brilliant.
Oh, that's great. This recommendation was excellent, and thank you for reaching out. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
I need to make a correction about a story that I told in a past episode.
Okay.
We were discussing, I can't remember what kicked this off, but I related a story about going to visit my brother, and one of my friends went with us. When we were there, we were going to a bunch of different restaurants, and that's what started. I was telling a story about my friend who likes to get under my brother's skin. And we went to all these good restaurants, and he kept asking if we enjoyed them. And this friend was like, it's okay. He just would not give my brother the satisfaction of letting him know that he thought it was decent. And my brother has been listening to the podcast, and he got to that episode, and he wanted me to make a correction. He said he could not care less about this individual's opinion about anything.
Okay.
So...
okay.
I would like to correct my record. I was just giving my perception of the situation, but I now have on good authority that is the situation.
Were we, as they saying, throwing shade? Is that what that?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I care enough to find out.
Okay, but that correction has been completed.
Okay.
So
noted, sir.
Wow. All right, Chapter 3, Part 2.
I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing at that now. Oh, my Lord. Okay.
All right. KIT, Billy.
Now you got me with that one. Give me.
All right. We pick up the chapter on the day following the conversation between Diker and Culp. As they discussed extremely difficult street-to-street evacuation drills Coltane was putting the 7th Army through. Here we go. Corporal List had died within the first few minutes of the mock engagement. Bolt, who commanded a howling mob of Wiccans, had personally clouded List on the side of his head, hard enough to leave the boy sprawled unconscious in the dust. He had thrown List over one shoulder and carried him from the battle. This poor guy's going to get CTE. I mean, he probably got concussed at least 6 times in all these training exercises.
Oh, I know it. I always think of Archer. Do you ever watch much Archer?
Yeah, we watched about 3 seasons of it.
It's probably in those seasons. He punches some guy in an airplane when they're doing a drop and leaves niggas. And seriously, it's Ray. It's like, seriously, Ray, you shouldn't be out for very long like that. It's really bad for you. It's Ray's out for a very long time. But yes, I guess the Denull healing. So thank goodness for that, because you get all the pain of the concussion, just none of the nasty after effect. I hope that it gets rid of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, another note I had here is Bolt is supposed to be old, too. And his experience is really showing here. These young pups getting shown up by all the old guys.
Hey, I think I made a reference to watching a video to an old man whooping down a bunch of street punks the other day. It was really amusing to watch it happen sometimes when you mess with the old guy.
Oh, yeah, that's the guy that went to the Berserker Rage and just destroyed a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Real life Wolverine.
Yes, it was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad for those guys. I love seeing that.
Yes.
I'm not a guy that likes seeing that kind of stuff normally, but it's like that. I enjoyed seeing that.
Bolt grinned as he jogged up the track to the rise from which Coltane and a few of his officers observed the engagement and dropped List into the dust at Coltane's feet. Diker sighed. Coltane glanced around and yelled, "Healer, attend the boy!" One of the 7th cutters appeared, crouching at the corporal's side. "Medic!" I'm getting Starship Troopers vibes from that.
Absolutely. Now I could see Michael Ironsides as Bolt. Just stick a beard on him. That's the guy. That's the main guy before he loses his arms, I think. It's that or Clancy Brown, but I love Michael Ironside.
No,
in there too.
It's Michael Ironside. He had a metal hand.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it should have been an iron hand, but hey, it's Michael. I love Michael Ironside. He's getting kind of old, so we need to make this movie quick. We're gonna have to break out a bunch of new people we don't know.
For Bolt?
Yeah.
We can't have him as Bolt.
Who would he? Yeah, maybe not.
He's got to look Mongolian.
That is true. Oh my
either way. I don't know that I've
South Park reference.
What? Oh, the Mongolians?
Ooh, Mongolians.
No, we're not going down this road. All right.
Sorry.
Coltane slid.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
I can't concentrate. Why? All right.
I hate you right in Mongolian with that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. The impersonation. All right. Coltane's slitted eyes found Diker. He said, "I see no change in this day's proceedings, historian." Diker responded, "It is early yet, Fist." Coltane grunted and returned his attention to the dust-filled ruins where soldiers emerged from the chaos. Both fighters from the 7th and Wiccans bore minor wounds and broken limbs. Bolt scowled and said, "You spoke too soon, Coltane. This one's different." Diker saw more Wiccans among the victims than soldiers of the 7th, and the ratio was widening with every passing moment. Coltane called for his horse. He swung himself into the saddle and shot Bolt a glare. He said, "Stay here, uncle. Where are my lancers?" He waited impatiently as 40 horsemen with blunted lances rode onto the rise. Coltane led them at a canter toward the ruins. Bolt spat dust and said, "It's about time." Diker asked, "What is?" Bolt said, "The 7th finally earned Lancer support. It's been a week overdue, historian. Coltane had expected a toughening, but all we got was a wilting. Who's given them new spines then? You? Careful, or Coltane will make you a captain." I love Bolt.
Oh man, I love Bolt too. I love the Wiccan, the Bolt, all the Wiccans, but the stuff between Bolt and Coltane, that stuff's too funny. He's so dry.
Their sense of humor is great. Very dry.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Diker said, "As much as I'd like to take credit, this is the work of Culp and the squad sergeants. I had 2 things here. First, I really appreciate that Diker didn't take credit for this turn of events. Giving it to the 7th, it really shows character on his part.
Oh, absolutely. Another great reason to like Diker. I wonder if that's from his perspective as a historian. It's just better to, he just kind of figured this out from, he's studied enough combat, historically speaking, and like, maybe if you'll do this, this will happen. And there you go. There's a little history for you.
I think it kind of goes with my second point, and that's notice how these key individuals can influence a mass for the better. And in his particular case, I think it's the people that he was surrounded with, his past experience. He was one of those key people that was in a position to be very influential. Yeah. And through those experiences, he's able to see what you're talking about, what needs to be improved, and then pass that on.
Yeah. And it just like you said, it's always good to just, it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as something as far as getting something done right is what matters.
Well, I think in this particular case, it actually does matter who gets the credit, because the goal is for Coltane to begin to get faith that the 7th is capable of doing what he needs them to do when the time comes.
That's true. I agree.
And this accomplished that.
Yeah.
Additionally, throughout this series, many of my favorite characters are those that step up to do what must be done, just like Diker did here. And they lead those around them by showing them the right way, the right path.
Any fellow rereader knows this just leads down a discussion to what scene do you want to talk about to get you start crying? for just such people as these. You just mentioned.
Yeah, either that, or either crying or getting chills on the back of your neck, because it's just like one of those scenes that you're just like, man, it's just so epic what they're capable of doing.
I just stand up and fist pump. Yeah, you want to stand up and fist pump the air a lot, don't you? Too. It's like yes.
Mm-hmm. Bolt said, "Culp's making things easier. Then no wonder they've turned the battle." Diker shook his head and said, "Culp follows Coltane's orders, Bolt. If you're looking for a reason to explain your Wiccan's defeat, you'll have to look elsewhere. You might start with the 7th showing their true mettle." Bolt mused, "Perhaps I shall," with a glint in his small, dark eyes. Diker noted, "The fist called you uncle." Bolt said, "Aye." Diker asked, "Well, are you?" Bolt asked, "Am I what?" Not getting much from here. Back to that dry humor.
I love how tight to the vest these guys play things here. They're great.
Diker gave up. He was coming to understand the Wiccan sense of humor. No doubt there would be another half a dozen or so brisk exchanges before Bolt finally relented with an answer. From the dust clouds, a score of refugees appeared, wavering strangely as they walked, each of them burdened with impossible possessions: massive dressers, chests, larder-packed cupboards, candlesticks, and antique armor. A protective cordon of soldiers of the 7th surrounded them. They laughed, shouted, and beat swords on shields as they made good their withdrawal. Bolt barked a laugh and said, "My compliments to Culp when you see him, historian." Diker said, "The 7th's earned a day of rest." Bolt raised his eyebrows and asked, "For one victory?" Diker explained, "They need to savor it, Commander. Besides, the healers will be busy enough mending bones. You don't want them with exhausted warrens at the wrong time." Bolt asked, "And the wrong time is soon, is it?" Diker slowly said, "I am sure. Sormo Enath would agree with me." Bolt spat again, then said, "My nephew approaches." Coltane and his lancers had appeared. They were providing cover for the soldiers, many of whom dragged or carried the Scarecrow refugees. The sheer numbers made it clear that victory for the 7th had been absolute. Diker asked, "Is that a smile on Coltane's face? Just for a moment, I thought I saw..." Bolt growled, "Mistaken, no doubt." Diker was coming to know these Wiccans, and he detected a hint of humor in Bolt's voice. After a moment, Bolt continued, "Take word to the 7th, historian. They've earned their day." That's great. Making progress after breaking through a wall always feels so good. And these are the types of situations that really build the strong bonds of brotherhood between groups of individuals, struggling together to achieve a shared win after all that trouble is great.
Yeah, agreed. And I really love this scene. It shows that a kind word in the right place can affect an outcome for the better.
Yes, absolutely. Diker was critical with that.
Yeah, Diker's one of my faves in this book.
We now go to Fiddler and Company. Fiddler sat in darkness in the overgrown garden. Above him, only a small patch of the starlit, moonless sky was visible. After a moment, he cocked his head, then said, "You move quietly, lad. I'll give you that." Crocus hesitated behind Fiddler, then joined him on the bench. He said, "Guess you never expected him to pull rank on you like that." Fiddler asked, "Is that what it was?" Crocus said, "That's what it seemed like." Fiddler said nothing. Crocus said, "She's upset." Fiddler shook his head. He said, "It was an argument. We weren't torturing prisoners." Crocus said, "Apsalar doesn't remember any of that." Fiddler said, "I do, lad, and those are hard memories to shake." Crocus responded, "She's just a fisher girl." Fiddler said, "Most of the time, but sometimes," and shook his head. Crocus sighed, then changed the subject. He said, "So it wasn't part of the plan, then, Kalam going off on his own?" Fiddler said, "Old blood calls, lad. Kalam's 7 cities born and raised. Besides, he wants to meet this Shaikh, this desert witch, the Hand of Dryjna." With an exasperated tone, Crocus said, "Now you're taking his side. A tenth of a bell ago, you nearly accused him of being a traitor." Fiddler grimaced and said, "Confusing times for us all. We've been outlawed by Lysine, but does that make us any less soldiers of the Empire? Malaz isn't the Empress, and the Empress isn't Malaz." Man, these bridge burners are loyal to a fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. Sounds like Texans. We love our beloved state even during the season of the rot.
Oh, you're loving it from afar.
I am.
You're not in it like I am.
Well, it's hot. It's funny. You're not. That's true. My days are hot. My days, but we're 106 today. But it will be a 70.
What's your humidity? Yeah, that's the worst part of it.
Yeah, this is August. It says in our town is the driest time of the year.
Yeah,
my humidity is 28%, slightly humid.
Yeah, we were like 80% today.
Oh, yeah. So it'll be that temperature at 4 a.m. Mine will be 70 something at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It is.
Crocus said, "A moot distinction, I'd say." Fiddler glanced at Crocus and said, "Would you now? Ask the girl. Maybe she'll explain it." Crocus said, "But you're expecting the rebellion. In fact, you're counting on it." Fiddler said, "Don't mean we have to be the ones who trigger the whirlwind, though, does it? Kalam wants to be at the heart of things. It's always been his way. This time, the chance literally fell into his lap. The Book of Dryjna holds the heart of the whirlwind goddess. To begin the apocalypse, it needs to be opened by the seeress and no one else. Kalam knows it might well be suicidal, but he'll deliver that hood-cursed book into Shaikh's hands, and so add another crack in Lysine's crumbling control. Give him credit for insisting on keeping the rest of us out of it." Crocus said, "There you go again, defending him. The plan was to assassinate Lysine, not get caught up in this uprising. It still doesn't make any sense coming to this continent." Fiddler straightened and looked at the sky. He said, "There's more than one road to Unta, lad. We're here to find one that's probably never been used before and may not even work, but we'll look for it anyway, with Kalam or without him. Hood knows, it might be Kalam's taking the wiser path, overland, down to Erin, by mundane ship back to Quantali. Maybe dividing our paths will prove the wisest decision of all, increasing our chances that one of us at least will make it through." So Fiddler is hinting at another way of getting to Quantali that isn't by ship. Interesting.
Lands within plans. Yes, it is interesting.
Crocus snapped, "Right, and if Kalam doesn't make it, you'll go after Lysine yourself, a glorified ditch digger, and long in the tooth at that. You hardly inspire confidence, Fiddler. We're supposed to be taking Apsalar home." What blasphemy is this, calling a Malazan sapper a glorified ditch digger?
I agree. And old and a glorified ditch digger. Them's fighting words, brother.
Yeah. I was going to say they're the cornerstone of the Malazan army, but I corrected myself because the mages have to be.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the power they wield, you can't really do stuff without them. But that being said, the sappers have to be next in line with how important they are to the whole way that the thing operates.
Yeah. I believe a good saboteur, at least the way these guys are saboteurs / sap, all that, whatever you want to call it, that's a valuable skill there. It's highly prized in World War II with us. It's very much the commandos.
Mm-hmm. Is there a case for the Marines, the heavies, or any of the other fighters to be higher than the sappers, in your opinion? Or would you rank them the same that I did, where it's the mages, then the sappers, then the other ones?
I'm like you. I put them up there like that. But I think but we also have this filter of seeing these guys as this is the beginning of them. We know where the end result of these guys ends up as, so we know how awesome they are, but we also know how awesome they are as what's been hinted at It's just this is the book where we finally get to meet the bridge burners. I mean, some of them. I mean, we've met a few of them, but it wasn't like this intimate.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Because we were too busy with such a bigger cast of characters. There's a big cast in this, but as far as this little group, but is there something about this? It's much more intimate, and we finally meet Fiddler, and you know how I feel about Fid. I mean, he's like one of my all-time faves.
Yeah, Fiddler and Kalam have spoken more already, almost, than they did in the entire first book.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
But yes, I hold them in that same esteem, yes.
Okay. If anybody else has a case to be made about a different order there, I'd like to hear it. Contact at horsefrogproductions.com.
Yeah, you can also check our Facebook page at the Malazan Brotherhood.
With a cold voice, Fiddler said, "Don't push me, lad. A few years pilfering purses on Darujistan's streets don't qualify you to cast judgment on me." Branches thrashed in the tree opposite them, and Moby appeared, hanging one-armed, a risen struggling in its jaws. Moby's eyes glittered as bones crunched. Probably a horrifying sound.
Yes.
Fiddler grunted and slowly said, "Back in Kwantali, we'll find more supporters than you might imagine. No one's indispensable, nor should anyone be dismissed as useless. Like it or not, lad, you've some growing up to do." Crocus said, "You think me stupid, but you're wrong. You think I'm blind to the fact that you're thinking you've got another shaved knuckle in the hole, and I don't mean Quick Ben. Kalam's an assassin who just might be good enough to get Lysine. But if he doesn't, there's another one who just might still have in her the skills of a god. But not any old god, no. The patron of assassins, the one you call the rope. So you keep prodding her. You're taking her home because she isn't what she once was. But the truth is, you want the old one back." That is a dark take from Crocus there.
Yes, it is. But he's not entirely inaccurate, though, is it?
I hadn't looked at it like that, really.
I
but
hadn't either. But when
the fact that he's saying that they want the old Sari back, the way that they responded to her, man, I don't know that anybody would want her back.
No, they don't.
Like that, because they're all terrified of her.
Oh, yeah. They need her. Well, we'll learn. We'll learn more about Absalom in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And what she does and does not remember.
Right.
Or what her body does and does not remember.
Fiddler was silent for a long time, then he cleared his throat and said, "I don't think that deep. I run on instinct." Crocus asked, "Are you telling me that using Absalar didn't occur to you?" Fiddler admitted, "Not to me, no." Crocus said, "But Kalam." Fiddler resisted, then shrugged. He said, "If he didn't think of it, Quick Ben would have." Crocus let out a triumphant hiss, then said, "I knew it. I'm no fool." Fiddler said, "Oh, Hood's breath, lad. That you're not." Crocus promised, "I won't let it happen, Fiddler." Fiddler nodded at Moby and said, "This Baccaral of your uncle's, it's truly a familiar, a servant of the sorcerer, or a servant to a sorcerer. But if Mammoth is dead, why is it still here? I'm no mage, but I thought such familiars were magically fused to their masters." Crocus admitted, "I don't know. Maybe he's just a pet. You'd better pray it's so. I said I wouldn't let you use Absalar. If Moby's a true familiar, it won't just be me you'll have to get past." Fiddler said, "I won't be trying anything, Crocus, but I still say you've some growing up to do. Sooner or later, it will occur to you that you can't speak for Absalar. She'll do what she decides, like it or not. The possession may be over, but the god's skill remains in her bones. What if she decides to put those skills to use?"
That's what I was hinting at there.
Mm-hmm. Crocus said, "She won't," but the assurance had left his voice. He gestured, and Moby flapped sloppily into his arms. He asked, "What did you call him?" "A Bacca," Fiddler said. "Baccaral. They're native to this land. And they're the same ones that Iskrol Pust is using in his temple. As acolytes, no less." Crocus said, "Oh." Fiddler advised, "Get some sleep, lad. We're leaving tomorrow." Crocus said, "So is Kalam." Fiddler said, "Aye, but we won't be in each other's company. Parallel paths southward, at least to start with." Fiddler watched Crocus head back inside with Moby clinging to Crocus like a child. He thought, Hood's breath, I'm not looking forward to this journey. Inside the caravan gate was a square in which the land traders assembled before leaving Erlatan. Most of them would strike south along the raised coastal road. Fiddler had spoken with several and learned few bandits had yet to take advantage of the Malazan troop withdrawal. It was clear the merchants took no chances, giving the swollen ranks among the mercenary guards accompanying each caravan. Fiddler and company had chosen to travel in the guise of pilgrims. To the most devout, the path of the seven, pilgrimage to each of the 7 holy cities, was a respected display of faith. Pilgrimage was at the heart of 7 cities' tradition, and impervious to the threat of bandits or war. Fiddler, still disguised as a Grawl, played the role of guardian and guide to Crocus and Absalar, 2 young, newly married believers who embarked on a journey that would bless their union under the 7 heavens. Each of them would be mounted. Fiddler on a Grawl-bred horse, disdainful of his imposture and viciously tempered. Crocus and Absalar on well-bred mounts purchased from one of the better stables outside Erlatan. 3 spare horses and 4 mules completed the train. Those ill-tempered horses are making an appearance again.
Oh, I know it.
Kalam had left with a terse farewell at dawn. The words that had been exchanged the night before sullied the moment. Fiddler understood Kalam's hunger to wound Lasine through the rebellion, but the potential damage to the Empire and to whoever assumed the throne following Lasine's fall was, to Fiddler's mind, too great a risk. It seems that Kalam is approaching this from more of an emotional angle, and Fiddler is more grounded and has a more thought-out perspective, doesn't he?
He does, because he's worried about, who's going to replace, if we take out her, is it going to be worse? We're going to make this worse. And this is also where like we just talked about previously, and even Fiddler brings it up about Kalam kind of going a little native here. He's in 7 cities. This thing has been speaking to him his whole life. He's heard about this of the whirlwind, I'm sure, and Dryzen and all that stuff. So this is something that he's got to look into. It's
right.
It's something that's called to the 7 cities native in him, and I appreciate Fiddler. I think on this aspect that he's more chill, more grounded on that viewpoint.
Fiddler belatedly realized there was sadness in the departure, for it seemed that the duty that once bound him and Kalam together to a single cause, which was as much friendship as anything else, had been sundered. For the moment, there was nothing to take its place within Fiddler. He was left feeling lost, more alone than he had been in years. Their party would be among the last to leave through Caravan Gate. As Fiddler checked the girth straps on the mules one final time, the sound of galloping horses drew his attention. A troop of 6 red blades had entered the square. Fiddler glanced over to where Crocus and Absalar stood beside their horses. Catching Crocus's eye, he shook his head and resumed adjusting the mule's girth strap. The soldiers were looking for someone. They split up, a rider each heading for one of the remaining trains. Fiddler heard hooves approach and forced himself to remain calm. Growl! Pausing to spit as a tribesman would at the accosting of a Malazan lapdog, he slowly turned. Great.
Oh. I'm glad we're not counting the number of times that people spit in this book,
yeah.
or say I.
Yeah, I would get hit pretty hard, but spitting, I think we're up to like 10 or 11, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
The Red Blade's face had tightened in response to the gesture. He said, "One day the Red Blades will cleanse the hills of Grawl." Fiddler snorted and said, "If you have something worthy of being said, Red Blade, speak. Our shadows are already too short for the leagues we travel this day." The Red Blade said, "A measure of your incompetence, Grawl. I have but one question to ask. Answer truthfully, for I shall know if you lie. We would know if a man on a roan stallion rode out alone this morning through Caravan Gate." Fiddler replied, "I saw no such man, but I now wish him well. May the 7 spirits guard him for all his days." Poking the bear a little bit.
Oh, I love it. Oh, my good gracious. I'm assuming Fid has had a run with these fellas before, too, but his treatment is
probably
obviously expected, but it's still funny.
Mm-hmm. The Red Blade snarled, "I warn you, your blood is no armor against me, Grawl. You were here with the dawn?" Fiddler returned to the mules and said, "One question. You pay for more with coin, Red Blade." The soldier spat at Fiddler's feet, jerked his mount's head around, and rode to rejoin the troop. Beneath his desert veil, Fiddler allowed himself a thin smile. Crocus appeared beside him and hissed, "What was that about?" Fiddler shrugged, then said, "The Red Blades are hunting someone. Not anything to do with us. Get back to your horse, lad. We're leaving." Crocus asked, "Kalam?" Fiddler said, "It may have reached them that the holy tome's no longer in Erin, and someone's delivering it to Shaik. No one knows Kalam is here." Crocus looked unconvinced. He said, "He met someone last night, Fiddler." Fiddler said, "An old contact who owes him." Crocus said, "Giving him reason to betray Kalam. No one likes being reminded of debts." Fiddler said nothing. After a moment, he went to his horse. The Grawl gelding showed its teeth as he reached for the reins. He gripped the bridle under the animal's chin. It tried tossing its head, but he held firm, leaned close. He said, "Show some manners, you ugly bastard, or you'll live to regret it." Gathering the reins, he pulled himself up into the high-backed saddle. Him and this horse, man.
Oh my word, that is a tough horse. I don't want to see this horse, man.
Ill-tempered.
I want to see it from way over there. It's like, yeah, that horse over there, that dude bit somebody. It's going to hurt somebody. It's not going to be me either. I'm going to be over here.
Beyond Caravan Gate, the coastal road stretched southward. On their left and a league inland ran the Arifal Hills, which would follow them all the way to the Ebb River, 36 leagues to the south. Barely tamed tribes dealt in those hills, preeminent among them the Grawl. Fiddler's greatest worry was running into a real Grawl tribesman. The chance of that was diminished somewhat given the season, for the Grawl would be driving their goats deep into the range, where both shade and water could be found. And this is the kind of stuff that I appreciate about world building. The additional details about the people inhabiting the lands, the reasons they do what they do, they're all very enjoyable to me.
Oh, I agree. And this does so much to make it a lived-in world. That's a lot of my problem with so much other fantasy. And I'm not trying to dog anything in particular, but so much stuff is always in some pristine Eden-like place where the dragon or something has stolen, insert generic quest item here, and the hero must insert generic quest here, kind of thing. This place feels more real. This is a lot more real than most other literary worlds that I know of.
Agreed. The day's heat was already building. Their destination was a small village called Salik, a little over 8 leagues distant, where they would stop to eat the midday meal and wait out the hottest hours before continuing on to the Traub River. If all went well, they would reach Gdanisban in a week's time. Fiddler expected Kalam to be as many as 3 days ahead of them by then. Beyond Gdanisban was the Panpotson Odon, a sparsely populated wasteland of desiccated hills, the skeletal ruins of long-dead cities, poisonous snakes, biting flies, and Fiddler recalled the spirit walker Kimlock's words, the potential of something far deadlier, a convergence. Tog's feet. I don't like that thought at all, he thought. Now, Tog, that's one of the wolf gods. Tog and Fanderay.
Yeah, Tog and Fanderay. I prefer that one to the other one. It's usually another reference. Oh, is Tog a boar?
The mate to Fanderay, the she-wolf of winter. So it's the male. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, don't you normally hear Tog's teats?
Yeah.
But Tog's male.
Yeah. Maybe that's the insult. Maybe that's the curse. I don't know. They're worthless.
Male wolves have nipples too, Billy.
They're worthless. I don't know.
You can milk anything with nipples, Billy.
I'm not talking about milk anything. What was that from? Oh, my word.
Those Meet the Parents.
Oh.
He was talking about milking the cat.
Milking the cat. Yes.
Oh, man. Yeah. It's been a while since I watched that.
Seriously uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I always think I think one of my favorite lines, I'm sorry, for Meet the Parents is when he's trying to bring home some fancy champagne to impress her daddy, and he's at the Walgreens. He's asking, Friedlander is like the cashier. He's like, "You got any champagne?" He says, "Yeah, we got some mums over there." He says, "Well, what can I get for it's like $5 champagne. What can I get for $100? Because you can get a bunch of mums." So I don't know. That's always stuck with me. It's such an uncomfortable. It's like the newer, better. It reminds me of the In-Laws. It's a take on the In-Laws, not the remake, but the Peter Falk, the Alan Arkin Peter Falk one from the 70s.
Okay, haven't seen that.
Oh my word, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's really brilliant and really uncomfortable.
Fiddler thought about the conch shell in his leather pack. Carrying an item of power was never a wise thing, probably more trouble than it's worth. He thought, what if some soul-taken sniffs it out, decides it wants it for its collection, then scowled. A collection easily built on one conch shell and 3 shiny skulls. The more he thought on it, the more uneasy he became. After some further deliberation, he concluded he would sell the conch. He thought it was better to rely on the Maranth incendiaries in his pack than on any mysterious shell. A flamer would burn a soul taken as easily as anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Croker rode up...
Croker.
I was just thinking about the Black Company.
Nice.
Crocus rode up alongside him and asked, "What are you thinking, Fiddler?" Fiddler said, "Nothing. Where's that Baccaral of yours?" Crocus frowned. "I don't know. I guess he was just a pet after all. Went off last night and never came back." Crocus wiped the back of his hand across his face, and Fiddler saw smeared tears on his cheeks. Crocus said, "I sort of felt Mammoth was with me, with Moby." Fiddler asked, "Was your uncle a good man before the Jaghut tyrant took him?" Crocus nodded. Fiddler grunted. "Then he's with you still. Moby probably sniffed kin in the air. More than a few highborn keep Baccaralla as pets in the city. Just a pet after all." Crocus said, "I suppose you're right. For most of my life I thought of Mammoth as just a scholar, an old man always scribbling on scrolls. My uncle. But then I found out he was a high priest. Important, with powerful friends like Baruch. But before I could even come to terms with that, he was dead. Destroyed by your squad." Fiddler said, "Hold on there, lad. What we killed wasn't your uncle, not anymore." Crocus said, "I know. In killing him, you saved Darujistan. I know, Fiddler." Fiddler said, "It's done, Crocus, and you should realize an uncle who took care of you and loved you is more important than his being a high priest, and he would have told you the same, I imagine, if he'd had the chance." Crocus said, "But don't you see? He had power, Fiddler, but he didn't do a damn thing with it. Just hid in his tiny room in a crumbling tenement. He could have owned an estate, sat on the council, made a difference." Fiddler didn't want to tackle that subject. He said, "Did she kick you up here for being so moody, lad?" Crocus's face darkened. Then he spurred forward, taking point position. Fiddler sighed, twisted in his saddle, and eyed Apsalar. He asked, "Lover's spat, is it?" She blinked owlishly. Fiddler swung back around and muttered, "Hood's balls," under his breath.
That's three. I love that we've gotten three Malazan swears here in this from Fiddler in this in as many minutes almost. I love it.
I think Hood's balls is a new one, isn't it?
Hood's balls is a new one, yes.
Now we are now taken to the Tessum Temple. Iskarol Pust frantically scrubbed a chimney with a broom. Now this is the high priest in this temple, mind you, scrubbing a chimney.
Word. Yeah, Iskarol is a character.
Mm-hmm. Mappo sat on a raised stone platform he had been using as a bed and asked, "You have wood?"
I hope not.
Pust said, "Wood? Wood's better than a broom?" Mappo clarified, "For a fire, to take out the chill of this chamber." Pust exclaimed, "Wood? No, of course not. But dung? Oh yes, plenty of dung. A fire, excellent. Burn them into a crisp. Are Trell known for cunning? No recollection of that. None among the rare mentions of Trell this, Trell that. Finding writings on an illiterate people, very difficult. Mappo said, "Trell are quite literate, have been for some time, 7, 8 centuries in fact." Pust said, "Must update my library, an expensive proposition. Raising shadows to pillage great libraries of the world." Mappo cleared his throat and asked, "Burn what into a crisp, high priest?" Pust said, "Spiders, of course. This temple is rotten with spiders. Kill them on sight, Trell. Use those thick-soled feet, those leathery hands. Kill them all. Do you understand?" Mappo nodded and pulled his blanket closer around him. He winced as the hide brushed the puckered wounds on the back of his neck. His fever had broken, as much due to his own reserves as, he suspected, the dubious medicines applied by Servant. The fangs and claws of divers and soul-taken were known to breed a singularly virulent sickness, which often culminated in hallucinations, bestial madness, then death. Sounds like a drug ad on TV.
Yeah, right.
For many who survived, the madness remained, reappearing on a regular basis for 1 or 2 nights, 9 or 10 times each year. It was a madness often characterized by murder. That sounds a lot like werewolves, almost.
It does.
Going into some type of madness once a month.
Yeah. It's like with werewolves with rabies.
Mm-hmm.
Really feral.
Pust believed Mappo had escaped that fate, but Mappo would not be confident of that until at least 2 cycles of the moon had passed without any sign of symptoms. If the Soul-Taken's poison was alive within him, Mappo would take his own life rather than unleash its will.
I had forgotten that the Soul-Taken also passed a virus. Is this the only mention? I don't recall any other mention of this. There's a lot to recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably get more information about Soul-Taken and divers in this book than any of the other ones, given he's really fleshing them out as concepts.
Yeah, they are big players in this one here.
Yeah.
And you're right. This is like it's like Rat Race, or it's like the original. It's a mad world, which was like the
Oh yeah.
predecessor. That's the predecessor
Oh
to
yeah,
Rat
I've seen
Race. The
that.
same thing. But yeah, this is it. But it's like their soul taken and diverse version of that. Isn't that what Deadhouse Gates is? I'm not trying to be funny. It's a much better. It's way better than that. But it's kind of in a funny way. It's kind of a literal rat race.
It is, which may include literal rats.
Right, and I've got to think that he's got to be smiling at that, Mr. Erikson. It's got to be, don't you?
It's a possibility because he does have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Maybe. Write it on the list of questions to ask him. We might have to ask him that.
Okay.
Did you have this in mind when you were writing this plot?
Oh.
Just the thought of him sitting there watching It's a Mad World, and he's like, yes, that's a great idea for a plot. You never know where inspiration comes from.
I know. And that's very true.
Puss stabbed the broom into each corner of the floor and ceiling of the small chamber that was Mappo's quarters. He said, kill what bites, kill what stings. This sacred precinct of shadow must be pristine. Kill all that slithers, all that scuttles. You are examined for vermin, the both of you, oh yes. No unwelcome visitors permitted. Lie baths were prepared, but nothing on either of you. I remain suspicious, of course. Mappo asked, have you resided here long, High Priest? Puss said, no idea, irrelevant. Importance lies solely in the deeds done, the goals achieved. Time is preparation, nothing more. One prepares for as long as is required. To do this is to accept that planning begins at birth. You are born, and before all else, you are plunged into shadow, wrapped inside the holy ambivalence, there to suckle sweet sustenance. I live to prepare, Trell, and the preparations are nearly complete.
He's like an insane Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an insane dark Jedi or something, you know?
Yes, preparation. Yes.
Meaning that lifetime is all preparation. I love that. It's all preparation until what's coming. I'm like, okay. I didn't realize he was that diligent. I just remember being crazy.
Man, I heard a Benjamin Franklin quote this morning, and it hit me hard.
Okay.
It was, some people die when they're 25, but they're buried when they're 75.
Oh, wow.
Have you heard that before?
I have not, but that's pretty awesome. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was like, whoa. Yeah, they just stagnate. Don't want to learn anything new. Perfectly happy, just punching in, punching out, checking out. Yeah, I was like, wow.
That's wild. That's really profound.
Yeah, I mean, it really left an impression on me. Yeah. Have you heard that before?
I have not. The only Ben Franklin I've got, is the it's attributed to him. I don't know if it's really him, but it's somebody that wants to trade liberty for freedom deserves neither. You know what I'm talking about? If you trade liberty for freedom, or something like that, if you trade liberty, it's like, but you deserve neither liberty or freedom for trading one for the other. Kind of, basically, the more it's talking about too much laws being on the books. Is how I take that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one too.
Yeah. I'll look deeper because I know I'm brutalizing that quote.
There was another quote that I heard today, and then I'll move on after this one. It was a Harlan Ellison quote. I'm going to have to paraphrase here, but it was basically, sometimes we'll say everybody has a right to an opinion, but that's not true. Everybody has a right to an informed opinion.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And here's the quote from him. He who would trade liberty for some temporary security deserves neither liberty nor security.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. That's great. That's great.
That's one. Yeah, that's one that's always really stuck with me.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Mappo asked, where is Icarium? Puss said, a life given for a life taken. Tell him that. In the library. The nuns left but a handful of books. Tomes devoted to pleasuring themselves. Best read in bed, I find. The rest of the material is mine. A scant collection. Dreadful paucity. I am embarrassed. Hungry? Mappo shook himself. Puss's rambles had a hypnotic quality. Each question Mappo asked was answered with a bizarre rambling monologue that seemed to drain him of will beyond the utterance of yet another question. True to his assertions, Iskarl Puss could make the passing of time meaningless. Mappo answered, hungry? Aye. Puss said, servant prepares food. Mappo asked, can he bring it to the library? Puss scowled and said, collapse of etiquette, but if you insist. Mappo pushed himself upright and asked, where's the library? Puss said, turn right, proceed 34 paces, turn right again, 12 paces, then through the door on the right, 35 paces, through archway on right, another 11 paces, turn right one last time, 15 paces, enter the door on the right. Mappo stared at Iskarl Puss. Puss shifted nervously. His eyes narrowed. Mappo said, or turn left 19 paces. Puss muttered, aye. Mappo strode to the door and said, I shall take the short route then. Puss growled, if you must, as he bent to a close examination of the broom's ragged end. Man, I gotta tell you, this entire passage with Iskarl explaining how to get to the library to Mappo is one that I highlighted on my first read through. I absolutely love it. It just, the madness of Puss is on full display. And I love him uncomfortably shifting about as Mappo stares him down because he knows Puss is trying to mess with him. It's hilarious.
It is absolutely hilarious. And I particularly love when Puss says things he thinks out loud also and thinks no one is listening. And it makes me question how much of it is an act. Because as Mappo notes, this is making me like, really, it's doing things to me. he notices that there are things things are so it's all part of it's got to be part of his act. So we also know that he's dangerous, and his insanity could be a mask for this, I guess. But I don't know what's the mask for what anymore with him.
Maybe that's the goal.
I don't think we ever answered. Maybe that's the problem with being a shadow worshiper, is that it just leaves everyone out of their minds. That we don't know. We don't know. They don't know that's.
But they're some of the most crafty people.
They're crafty, but what good does it do them?
I mean, they get stuff done.
Crazy with a broom up a chimney. They do get some stuff done. He breaks out the inner Cartman occasionally, and when he wants to get motivated, he gets it done. It's like Manson. You want to stand on that mountain? I'll get it done. Don't make me. Sorry.
When I say something, it better get done. If it don't get done,
I'm going to move on it. That's the last thing you want to happen. Something like that. I can't. Oh my good gracious! But I love those rants for some reason. But
we quoted it a while ago.
Yes, we have it. But that's his Carl. I think that's him I think he's very Manson-esque.
Wow. Mappo understood the breach of etiquette when, upon entering the library, he saw that the chamber also served as the kitchen. Ikariam sat at a robust black-stained table to Mappo's right, while Servant hunched over a cauldron suspended by chain over a hearth on Mappo's left. Servant's head was almost invisible inside a cloud of steam, drenched in condensation and dripping into the cauldron as he worked a wooden ladle in slow circles. Mappo said, I shall pass on the soup, I think. Ikariam said, these books are rotting. You are recovered? Mappo said, so it seems. Ikariam frowned. He said, soup? Ah, not soup. Laundry. You'll find more palatable fare on the carving table. He gestured to the wall behind Servant, then returned to the moldering pages of an ancient book open before him. So this is a library, kitchen, and laundry room.
Well, it reminds me of my elementary school in the 70s. We had a cafegimatorium, as my brother is one that's deemed it so. Did you have one? It was the cafeteria / gymnasium / auditorium.
I'm trying to remember.
The other thing we did you ever work? I was bused into a poor school in the 70s, and we got to work in the kitchen, and we loved it. And we got to work with like scalding hot water and a steam like cleaning device that cleaned trays. And we got to work in the kitchen. Yeah, right. And and it got you like, I don't know, it got you 15 or 20 minutes extra not having to go to class or something like that if you stayed and helped. So I remember helping.
Putting the kids to work. Wow.
Yeah, right on.
That's crazy.
Hey, it's crazy, isn't it? Different times. Could you imagine doing that to these kids nowadays? Oh my word!
They would close trying to get them to do it at home's bad enough.
Dude, ain't that the truth?
My elementary school was in California.
Oh,
we sat outside to eat lunch because it was California and it was beautiful weather.
Dude, I love you, but you suck. I'm just kidding. I like my growing up and I love you.
Sometimes I wonder if I would be better off not having experienced that because, I've been living in Texas for over 20 years now in Houston. Right. Mainly, and it's just miserable.
You got like 3 days out of the
to
year
not know anything else. Maybe
it's like
to not know any better.
Well, it's kind of funny because being here, I've tried to get us to eat outdoors multiple times because we do live in a place that we have a legitimate spring that lasts. for like a month or so. It's really sweet. We have a really nice autumn here. And
Mm-hmm.
so you kind of, and like I say, yeah, we have a beautiful river that runs through the town. So you want to sometimes go to these restaurants that have nice rivers, and it's not even a high dollar restaurant. And but I want to sit outside. She has asthma problems, so we don't go sit outside a lot of times because it can trigger her asthma. But it's like, this is the kind of place you could actually sit outside. It's like there's nights we stand outside on this porch quite a bit, wowing at the fact I got deer, raccoons, and foxes and cats that I feed off my porch.
Oh, we were driving back from the gym early in the morning the other day. Mm-hmm. Something ran across the road in our neighborhood, and I was like, that doesn't look like a cat or a squirrel or a raccoon. Mm-hmm. It was a baby armadillo.
Right on.
And my son had never seen one, and he was so excited. It was great.
Those things. What did somebody? Yeah. I've seen the pictures calling them a tactically armored possum.
Sounds about right.
or the tactical possums.
That's accurate.
They are.
All right. Moving along. Ikariam said, "This is astonishing, Mappo." Mappo said, "Given how isolated those nuns were, I'm surprised you're astonished." Ikariam clarified, "Not those books, friend. Iskarl's own. There are works here whose existence was but the faintest rumor, and some, like this one, that I have never heard of before. A treatise on irrigation planning in the 5th millennium of Ararkal, by no fewer than 4 authors." Mappa returned to the table with a plate piled high with bread and cheese, then leaned over Ikariam's shoulder to examine the detailed drawings on the book's vellum pages, then the strange, braided script. Mappo grunted. Mouth suddenly dry, he managed to mutter, "What is so astonishing about that?" Ikariam said, "The sheer frivolity, Mappo. The materials alone for this tome are a craftsman's annual wage. No scholar in their right mind would waste such resources, never mind their time, on such a pointless, trite subject. And this is not the only example. Look, seed dispersal patterns of the puerile flower on the Scar archipelago, and here, diseases of white-rimmed clams of Liqueur Bay. And I am convinced that these works are thousands of years old. Thousands." Mappo thought, "and in a language I never knew you would recognize, much less understand." Mappo recalled when he'd last seen such script, beneath a hide canopy on a hill that marked his tribe's northernmost border. He'd been among a handful of guards escorting the tribe's elders to what would prove a fateful summons. They had squatted in a half circle, facing north, and watched as 7 robed and hooded figures approached. Each held a staff, and as they strode beneath the canopy and stood in silence before the elders, Mappo saw, with a shiver, how those staves seemed to writhe before his eyes, the wood like serpentine roots, or perhaps those parasitic trees that entwine the boles of others, choking the life from them. Then he realized that the twisted madness of the shafts was in fact runic etching, ever-changing, as if unseen hands continually carved words anew with every breath's span. That's a cool visual, the writhing runic etching.
It is. I love that. The other thing I love is, for some reason, in books like this, I enjoy when they throw out some more weird prehistory of it. I mean, imagine this race that's come and gone to the extent that they're like us. They had books just on nothing, and just and the books are around, but the people aren't. I love it. I always love it what that hints at in the book for some reason. I like those vast epics of time that have passed unseen. We're not going to know about it, but I find those interesting for some reason.
Oh yeah, the deep history that exists from prior times. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I always like when they allude to that in stories, in particular fantasy stories and sci-fi, whatever. I like all this kind of stuff. Yeah. The prehistory is cool.
Super cute. One among the strangers withdrew its hood, and so began the moment that would change Mappo's future path. His thoughts jerked away from the memory. Trembling, Mappo sat down and cleared a space for his plate. He asked, "Is all this important, Ikariam?" Ikariam said, "Significant, Mappo. The civilization that brought forth these works must have been appallingly rich. The language is clearly related to modern 7 cities dialects, although in some ways more sophisticated. And see this symbol, here on the spine of each such tome, a twisted staff. I have seen that symbol before, friend. I am certain of it." Mappo struggled to change the subject from what he knew to be a looming precipice. "Rich, you said? More like mired in minutia. Probably explains why it's dust and ashes, arguing over seeds in the wind while barbarians batter down the gates. Indolence takes many forms, but it comes to every civilization that has outlived its will. You know that as well as I. In this case, it was an indolence characterized by a pursuit of knowledge, a frenzied search for answers to everything, no matter the value of such answers. A civilization can easily drown in what it knows as in what it doesn't know. Consider Gothos' folly. Gothos' curse was in being too aware of everything, every permutation, every potential, enough to poison every scan he cast on the world. It availed him not, and worse, he was aware of even that. Ikariam said, "You must be feeling better. Your pessimism has revived. In any case, these works support my belief that the many ruins in Raraku and the Panpots and Odon are evidence that a thriving civilization once existed here. Indeed, perhaps the first true human civilization from which all others were born." Mappo thought, "Leave this path of thought, Ikariam. Leave it now." He said, "And how does this knowledge avail us in our present situation?" Ikariam's expression soured slightly. He said, "My obsession with time, of course. Writing replaces memory, you see, and the language itself changes because of it. Think of my mechanisms, in which I seek to measure the passage of hours, days, years. Such measurings are by nature cyclic, repetitive. Words and sentences once possessed the same rhythms, and could thus be locked into one's mind and later recalled with absolute precision. Perhaps if I was illiterate, I would not be so forgetful."
That's true.
Yeah, it is.
It's
very,
true.
very, very true. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
Yes. I think back to the Iliad. That was a verbal story, right? That was later written down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of the old Bible stuff was all verbal, right?
All the old Hebrew, in particular, Hebrew is a language that is such, in the way the Bible is written, it's all mnemonic tricks. If you know the Hebrew, there are people that today, there are rabbis today that can still recite the Old Testament verbatim in Hebrew. Yeah. And the Old Testament is 2/3 of the Bible. The New Testament is only 1/3 of the Bible. So that's quoting
crazy.
2/3 of the Bible by memory. And like I said, it's because the way the Jewish language is built as such. It doesn't translate to English, of course, but in particular, some of the most famous ones in particular, Psalm 119. It's 8 stanzas for each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So in Hebrew, each line of that stanza would be it would be like A is for apple. I'm not trying to be, that's how they would have, that would have been the primer education piece for any young person, a young Hebrew child would have probably been taught that relatively early, because that would be the basis for a law of your spoken language. So it's very fascinating. It was all oral for the time. So yes, it's amazing how the oral, a lot of people today always look at the older peoples and poo-poo this and call them ignorant and think that these people were ignorant. It's like, no, just because we forget things because we don't have, these people remembered far more than we'd ever be able to remember because of their lifestyle.
The human brain is actually working against us here because there's a cognitive bias.
We talked about this.
I forget what they named it. We have in the past a while ago, where
it's been a long time.
If you know you can find the information somewhere, your brain doesn't bother to store it, because you can always just go look it up. It doesn't expend the effort. Think about this is probably like anybody that's Gen Z probably has never experienced this, but when we were growing up, we had telephones that were plugged into the wall, and
pre-cable. It was still pre-cable. Television was broadcast over the air.
Right, but when you would have phone numbers, and you'd have, I probably had 20 phone numbers memorized or more.
Do you remember your old home phone number?
No, I don't think so.
I still remember my first home phone number, and I still remember my station's telephone number because I worked there. It's
actually, I do remember my one from Texas. I do remember it. I just thought about it. It came to me just now, like thinking about it. I started just going through it, and it came back. Yeah,
because we used to need to know that. Yeah. And you can't find that information anywhere anymore, so your brain still holds on to that too.
Oh, that just threw me for a loop, Billy. The fact that it's still in there because I don't have it oh my gosh.
I mean, think about it. It's
it makes sense.
That number's not tied. It's not tied to anybody now, or if it isn't, it's not anybody you know.
Right.
Interesting though. I had not thought about it that way. I did not mean to sound profound. I just was just there.
The difference with the phone number thing is that's not really like a mnemonic trick, right? The old languages were designed in a way to help you remember. Like it was more like a song in some ways, right?
Well, you do know that in the 50s, the first 3 digits of your telephone number was always a word, right?
I did not know that.
That's why you hear the Klondike. If you ever watch the old movies, it says, "Someone give me Klondike." 6540. That's by telling them Klondike, you're apparently telling them the first three numbers to dial.
Okay.
So people used to have this kind of system where it's like, you would, there was some kind of, my mother could tell me what, I'll have to ask her what hers was, but she could tell you what it was in Waco.
Okay.
And it was like, and whatever, Butterfield 3589. I got no idea. I'm just saying, but it's something, I'm not kidding you though, but that's how that kind of was originally. The first three digits were spelled out in some kind of way. I don't get it because it's not relevant to us. Because we remember anytime you dialed an area code was always long distance. Do you remember that? If you dialed an area code, buddy, it was long distance.
Right.
And you better believe better not be doing that under your parents' house. Or you get a whooping.
Oh, okay. So final point before we got to move on.
Okay.
We had dial-up internet, and the Houston area code was 281, and 281 actually is a donut all around North Houston, all the way down around South Houston. So like Houston itself was a different area code. I think it was 713, and then 281 surrounded completely 713. And I found a 281 number. We used it for a month, and then we got a $400 phone bill because it was long distance. Even though it was the same area code, it was from the south side of Houston, and man.
Yeah.
That was a bad time.
Mildly put, sir. I love that.
I don't think my dad ended up having to pay that because he's very persuasive when he called the telephone company. Putting it nicely.
Right on. Okay. Right.
All right, moving along.
Okay, move along, sir.
And this $400 in the mid-90s.
Well, I'm going to get you in trouble with your mother, your father, and your brother before the end of this episode's over. We're getting there.
Yeah.
It's like
$400 in the mid-90s. So that's like what, $1,300 today?
Oh, probably? Yeah. Yes, easily. It's easily $1,200, $1,300.
Ikariam sighed and forced a smile. He said, "Besides, I was but passing time, Mappo." Mappo tapped a finger on the book and said, "I imagine the authors of this would have defended their efforts with the same words, friend. I have a more pressing concern." Ikariam's expression was cool, not completely masking amusement. He asked, "And that is?" Mappo gestured and said, "This place. Shadow does not list among my favorite cults. Nest of assassins and worse. Illusion and deceit and betrayal. Iskarl Pust affects a harmless facade, but I am not fooled. He was clearly expecting us and anticipates our involvement in whatever schemes he plans. We risk much in lingering here." Ikariam slowly said, "But Mappo, it is precisely here, in this place, that my goal shall be achieved." Mappo winced and said, "I feared you would say that. Now you shall have to explain it to me." Ikariam said, "I cannot, friend, not yet. What I hold are suspicions, nothing more. When I am certain, I shall feel confident enough to explain. Can you be patient with me?" In his mind, Mappo saw another face, human, thin, and pale. Flat gray eyes reaching up, finding Mappo's own beyond the rim of elders. In a raspy voice, he asked, "Do you know us?" An elder had nodded and said, "We know you as the Nameless Ones." Still staring at Mappo, the man said, "It is well, the Nameless Ones who think not in years, but in centuries. Chosen warrior," he continued, addressing Mappo, "what can you learn of patience?" The memories fled. Staring at Ikariam, Mappo managed a smile. He said, "Patient, I can be nothing else with you. Nonetheless, I do not trust Iskarl Pust." Servant began removing sopping clothes and bedding from the cauldron, using his bare hands as he squeezed steaming water from the bundles. Mappo frowned. One of Servant's arms was strangely pink, unweathered, almost youthful. The other more befitted the man's evident age, thickly muscled, hairy, and tanned. Mappo said, "Servant?" The man did not look up. Mappo tried again. "Can you speak?" Ikariam said, "It seems that he's turned a deaf ear to us, Mappo, by his master's command, I'd warrant. Shall we explore this temple, Mappo, bearing in mind that every shadow is likely to echo our words as a whisper in the high priest's ears?" Mappo rose and growled, "Well, it is of little concern to me that Iskarl knows of my distrust." Ikariam also rose and noted, "He surely knows more of us than we do of him." As they left, Servant was still twisting water from the cloth with something like savage joy, the veins thick on his massive forearms. Can you think of any significance on this last sentence here?
Maybe it's just indicative of the fact that he's not under control of his own self.
Okay.
I'd not thought of that
Yeah.
until just the previous thing that you just read made me think that as he's doing that laundry, like maybe he's being forced to do this in a way that maybe coerced magically. Might be a better way, to doing this.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe he was pretending it was Iskarl Pust's neck and he was wringing his neck.
That could be it too. That could very well be it too.
Imagine working for that madman.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, and thus the chapter ends. That was a great chapter.
Great.
It was difficult first half, I will say, but the second half made up for it.
It does. And this is, like I said, this is such an exciting story that even through some of the difficult times, it's still a magnificent story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I was thinking of that we didn't talk about last time's question more than anything is I wonder what Benneth is doing there as a slave. They never really talk about how he ended up there, I don't think.
That's the one that she's with, right?
Yes.
What wound him up
the king of Skull Cup?
Yes, that wound him up as, I think that we'll have some revelation because there's a significant amount of time spent on Skullcap, if I'm not mistaken. It's not like the whole chunk of the book, but it's a pretty significant. It's not a small piece that they spend there, correct? So I think we learn his past there. I believe how he probably was because I'm assuming he was just a grunt, just some slave, also forced to work in the mines and worked himself up by being I'm pretty sure a pretty tough hombre.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll see and find out. It's been
That's
a while,
question.
So I can't
That's
remember.
A great question. I can't remember that at all.
Yeah.
All I remember is everything in broad strokes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for standout moments, the outcome of the renewed efforts of the 7th with their street-to-street battle training. I really like seeing that.
Oh yeah, I really love seeing them come together and them achieving that victory is fantastic. You feel like you
through
achieve it. You feel
guidance.
You feel like you kind of achieve it with them, very vicariously.
Yeah. Feel it, yeah. No. You can feel their exultation.
It's the Big Trouble in Little China. You feel it? Yeah. I'm not scared of nothing.
Seeing more of Bolt's sense of humor, always enjoy that.
I love the Wiccans, man. But really good stuff there.
I enjoyed the introduction of yet another ill-tempered horse. Looking forward to seeing those shenanigans.
Now, I don't think that we're introduced to a lot more breeds of horses that stand out in particular in my mind, but are the Grawl horses the most ill-tempered of the bunch? I think they are.
I think so as well.
I know Wiccans are kind of got attitude, but I think they're just kind of picky about who their riders are. They get a rider they like, I don't think they got a problem with them. But the Grawl horse,
I mean, they're used to people worshiping them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, with these
so Grawls, if you're not worshiping the horse, that's not good enough.
Yeah, but the Grawl, dude, those guys, they just want to bite the crud out of everything, and they're too big. They're too big to be biting things. You can lose fingers. You can lose fingers to them things.
Absolutely, yes. Fiddler's interaction with the Red Blade was great. There was some good smack talk in there.
Yeah, and I really enjoy. I enjoy all interactions with Fiddler. Getting to know him in particular in this book is a real joy to me.
Yeah. Pust's crazy directions to Mappo to go to the library, and then Mappo calling him out on it. Glorious.
It's glorious that I was sitting there going, wait, is he walking him in a circle? Is it like, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do it in my head. I'm like, it's not correct. I know it's not correct, but then he's like, or I could just go left. It's like, dude, that's way better spatial awareness than I've got. But it's like, but nicely done, Mappo. I love that though. It's hilarious.
And finally, it was really good to start seeing how Mappo got to where he is with Ikariam, and there's still a lot of intrigue there. We're just slowly having little pieces of that exposed to us of how that transpired. So I really enjoy seeing that. And this includes the introduction of the nameless ones, which is really important.
That's a very important group to remember. Yeah, I just love that. Really good end to this chapter, real up because I mean, I particularly like Ikariam. He's such a tragic figure. I mean, we already know this. This is not a secret.
Yeah, having memory problems like that is tragedy for anybody that has them.
Yes, it is. So, but great episode, great chapter.
Yeah, good job today.
Great episode, great energy.
All right, you got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
No, just really looking forward to next week's chapter. I just love as we keep going. It gets better and better.
It does. I really enjoy this. So I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you.
Yes, thank y'all so much. We really appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Yes, y'all have a good week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.